Good evening. Welcome everybody to my man cave. It's Thursday. I'm so used to this being Friday. This has been a interesting change here for switching this over to Thursday, but we're gonna keep rolling on Thursday for a little while. Tanya's with us. Hang on a second. Brother Jeff is not with us tonight. Let me mute this other chat over here. Sorry. Uh, Dadgummit. Uh,
Well, hey Ed, how are you today?
Ed's with us. There
Ed's
we
with
go. I got
us,
that.
and we got
Ed,
Ryan with us,
Ryan. Yep. We're
and
gonna
of
have a
course
drink.
Hank.
We're gonna have a drink. If you're having a drink with me tonight, let me know what you're having and where you are. I'm gonna have a little bit of my Jack Daniel's Single Barrel Select tonight. One of my favorites. Hmm.
We have
Tanya, what are
Zach
you
with us from
having?
Louisiana,
Louisiana.
having a coffee with an extra shot of espresso.
Awesome.
I'm tired,
Oh, you'll be up all night.
probably.
All righty.
We got Andy
Andy.
with us too. Yeah.
Andy's with us. Awesome. Andy made some good looking ham salad with some leftover ham this week. I saw his picture of that. That looked good. So, Logan, glad you could make it. Logan got a load of sausage in the mail. I think maybe today, some of that Monroe sausage he was showing off. I saw some pictures of that too. So, cheers, everybody.
Oh my goodness, Daryl's in Bangkok. Holy
Mm,
cow! Good morning
Bangkok.
indeed.
Yep. We got a diverse crowd that shows up here. New Mexico. Levi,
Yeah.
glad you could be with us. We often have, Australia, the Europe crowd's a little harder to bring in since I went from 7:30 to 8:30 our time because that pushes it out way beyond midnight over there. So I don't know. Luke, Grand Rapids, Coors Light to school night. He says, okay, good deal. Kansas, Scott's in Kansas. All
Oh
right.
my goodness.
Did everybody survive your 4th of July cooks? I saw a lot of great pictures in the social media groups of stuff people were cooking for your 4th. Randy's having Woodford. I know Randy likes that Woodford Reserve. I think that's his
Yeah, I see
go-to.
he likes that one a lot.
Yeah.
I see
So
that one pretty often. And Andrew's back in Mississippi. Oh, the heat and humidity has been miserable here, Andrew. So I can imagine Mississippi is just awful.
we hit 98. We hit 98 degrees here today, and the humidity was up. The humidity here, when I checked, it was between 50 and 60%. It was not as bad as it could have been, but it was muggy. It was really rough. Cannon, welcome aboard. Fran's with us from the Pacific Northwest.
We got several representing from Georgia.
Atlanta, Carl's in Atlanta. I bet it's hot down there too.
Hmm.
Our brother Jeff can't be with us tonight. Jeff's on the road. He is on his way back home. He has been over in Nashville, Tennessee. He called me earlier today, and he wasn't going to be rolling back into the Orlando area until 11 o'clock. And I'm not even sure if they were going to push through. They may have stopped somewhere along the way. But Jeff will be back with us next week, and we'll have Jeff back. Woodford.
Randy
That's
has
yeah,
found
Randy. I
the
know how I
spot.
know how it is when you find something you really like. It's a good one to go to, and this is the one I like to call my go-to. I've got other stuff on the shelf behind me up there, but this, if I can only have one, this is going to be that one. I keep this on hand all the time. Mark's up in Syracuse, sunny Syracuse. Yeah.
What I
Okay.
always think about Syracuse is one of my best friends in graduate school worked as a costume designer, and she made costume Syracuse orange. And she had just detailed this process and she kept talking about it and she had worked so hard on it and she was so proud of it. And so she was really excited to see the Syracuse orange during the first game. And she's like, oh my gosh, there it is. There's my creation. And the Syracuse orange started rolling and she was just like, oh my God, no.
All righty. Well, we got a pretty good crowd with us tonight. That's
We
good.
do.
Last week was a little thin since it was our first Thursday, and plus this is a holiday week, and I know there's a lot of people traveling and not at home this week. Fletcher, okay, he's a North Carolina boy.
Yeah, he's not too far from where I teach.
Yeah.
Mm,
Tanya works up in Flat Rock. So,
I do.
Tanya, I'm going to push you down in the hole and we'll have you back here towards the end.
Okay.
All
I'll see you
righty.
later.
Okay, guys. I hope everybody did survive your 4th of July cooks. Let me get the comment window open here so I can kind of see what's going on too. I'm always interested in hearing what you cooked for the 4th. I'm going to be showing you what I cooked for the 4th when we get into our pictures because I did something out of the ordinary. Uh, we had a covered dish block party at my mom's and kind of trying to start something back that we used to do when I was young and lived at home. There were a lot of people in the neighborhood, and we lived in a cul-de-sac, and we would get the entire neighborhood would show up. We'd set up folding tables outside, and it would be a covered dish dinner that would just blow your mind. It would beat the average Southern Baptist Church Sunday lunch by a long shot. We had probably north of 100 people from the neighborhood that would show up, and everybody would bring something. And they're trying to kind of put that back together and get it going again. But the 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 younger people in the neighborhood there's not as many of them there anymore. So we had, I don't know, 20 or 25 people. It was good. And I'll show you what I cooked to take to that here in just a little bit. So uh, short rib, nihari. I'm not familiar with that one. But when you mention short ribs, it makes me want to go shopping. Beef ribs are God's gift to barbecue. So I really need to grab some more. Next time I'm in the Atlanta area, I'm going to stop by Patton's and get another rack of those dino bones, or maybe even two. I just love beef ribs. If I could only have one barbecue meat, the beef ribs would be what I'd have. So Ed smoked a small pork butt and a huge dino ribs. Okay, yeah, that's the best stuff ever. Boater, St. Louis ribs. Okay, and corn. You know, I saw something else on corn that makes me think. Somebody posted something earlier this week about smoked corn on the cob, and it looked pretty interesting. I think they were putting corn on the cob on the smoker at 225 or 250 for about 4 hours. And I'm not, I've never done it that low. I always go screaming hot for corn on the cob. I like to go north of 400 degrees when I put it on there in the husk and just let it cook and let it get done pretty quickly. But I might try this smoked corn on the cob thing. It looked pretty good. St. Louis pork steaks. That's something else I want to do another video on. I haven't done those in a while, and they're delicious. I think next time I'm at a shop where I can get the butcher to slice the butt for me, I'll get I'll buy a pork butt and get it sliced because I like mine thicker than you normally find them. If you find those St. Louis pork steaks in the meat case around here, they're thin. And I don't know, a half an inch is probably okay, but that's not a man cave cut. I want mine an inch thick. It probably an inch thick because that's what looks good on camera. All right, my wife helped me hook up something else I was wanting this week. She was shopping yesterday and she came across some of these Black Lodge pans that I talked to you guys about these before. Atlanta Grill Company's carrying this line now, and the only piece of this I have is the 12. I have the 12-inch pan, but she found the 7 1/4 inch pan and the 10-inch pan at a better than average price at a shop she was at yesterday, and I had her pick those up for me. So I've got all three of those skillets now, and those are going to become my go-to skillets here in the man cave. I'm so happy with those. Those are going to be my go-to cast iron skillets for everything. I'm going to put some of my other ones. I'm going to oil them and put them in a bag and put them away, and only use them if I have to have them for something. But I'm a real big fan of this Lodge Blacklock line. They're excellent quality, and they're inexpensive, and they're very well made. So that's the first thing I got. So last Friday, on my wood fired Friday, I made another pan of macaroni and cheese, and I'll just let you look at that. Does that look good or what? Rod, glad you could make it with us. I love macaroni and cheese, and this is part of what we had for dinner last Friday night. And I've got a little cross-sectional look at you there. That's what it looks like when you cut into my mac and cheese after it's been in the oven. It's really gorgeous. And Tanya and I had this for dinner Friday night along with some smoked sausage, and I think I had leftovers for that. I had 4 or 5 meals worth of leftovers out of that. Anthony, good to have you with us tonight, and from Raleigh. Excellent. Elijah Craig's an excellent bourbon. Their basic offering is one of the most underrated bourbons out there. It's a really great bourbon for the price. Okay, we talked about chicken wings. I guess it may have been last week we were talking a little bit about wings. And I said I wondered what would happen if, Jeff and I have been playing with a lot of concepts and figuring out the best way to get crispy, crunchy chicken wings. And one of the things I haven't tried is an egg wash and seasoned flour. So I said, we're going to try that. I tried that this week. So I got some wings and I broke them down into the flats and drumettes. I made a batch of my seasoned flour, and I took a couple of eggs and tossed in a little bit of milk and whipped that up real smooth. So what I did was I dredged my chicken wings in the flour and then in the egg wash, and I put them on my little rack. This was a mistake right here, guys. This is called a jelly roll pan. This is made by Chicago Metallic, and I like this pan because it's got this perfect little rack that fits in it. But let me tell you something. Don't do this, because that rack is a pain in the hind end to clean, and it does. Next time I do this, I'm going to not use the rack, and I'm going to put a piece of parchment paper in the pan. But this is what those wings look like. These have been dredged in the flour and then in the egg wash, and then I shook on some of the Atlanta Grill Company Big Chicken on top of that, and I put them in the Bark pellet smoker at 450 for 40 minutes or so. And these things, this went up a level in crisp. This brought crispy to a higher level. These by far had the best outer finish on any wings I've ever done. This what we're doing here, as you're probably aware, is we are approaching Colonel Sanders chicken, or most of your fried chicken shops are hitting the flour, the egg wash, and then the flour again. I haven't tried flour egg wash in an additional roll in the flour yet. I'm going to do that because I bought a big pack of wings and I've got most of them still left, and I'll run another test on that. But this outer skin is very crispy, very crunchy, and this held up to saucing better than anything I've done in the past. I don't think I didn't put a picture of these after I sauced them. I tossed these in just a little bit of the Atlanta Grill Company vinegar sauce and turned it into basically a barbecue chicken wing, and it was delicious. But this process is something you should consider if you want to come up your crispy game in these chicken wings. And like I said, I'm going to try it again, and I'm going to do flour, egg wash, flour again, and see if that goes too far. That may or may not take it too far, but we'll see. Anurag likes his wings naked with some super hot sauce. Yeah, a lot of people do, and I don't have a problem with that. I can eat chicken wings any way they come because the first thing when it comes to chicken wings for me is I don't think chicken wings should be cooked on the grill. I'm a deep fried guy. I think the best way to cook chicken wings is in a deep fryer because that crisps up the outside of the wing and it only takes 10 or 12 minutes to cook the wing. You obviously don't get any smoke flavor, but you can bring smoke to it. And I'm going to commit a sin here, but you can have a smoky sauce by either making one and adding a little bit of liquid smoke to it, or just buying some sort of smoky barbecue sauce that somebody else put liquid smoke in to bring smoke to it. But I still believe that deep frying wings is the best way to do it. And I'm going to do a demo of that at some point. I'm going to deep fry some, and we will have a look. I did, Brian. I cooked them on that pan on that rack, and some of the breading that we put on here stuck on that rack, and it's really difficult to clean off. I soaked that rack in the sink, and I have a stiff bristle brush, and I just couldn't get it all out of the cracks and crevices doing it by hand. So I took it up and gave it to Tanya and had her run it through the dishwasher, and that cleaned it up nicely. It came clean in the dishwasher, but in the man cave kitchen, I'm the dishwasher. I don't have the dishwasher down here. So if I need something run through the dishwasher, I'll let Tanya do it. And I've got a handful of things that I do run through the dishwasher, but not very many. But when I do this again, I'll cook them on the pan, but I'll put some parchment paper down and it will not be a problem. 4th of July, my contribution to the block party covered dish was my blueberry cream cheese pound cake. And this is another piece of Lodge cast iron that I've got. This is one that they reissued several years ago. Lodge went through this phase where they were reissuing temporary releases of some of their older pieces that had been discontinued. And Tanya and I were in a Lodge shop down in Concord, North Carolina, and they had this bump pan as one of those reissue items. I think I paid $69 for this, and it's a wonderful bump pan for cooking pound cakes. And what I like to do is as you can see in the picture here, what I've done is I've buttered the inside of that pan. I've smeared softened butter into the pan, and then I got flour. I floured that pan, and that's what I like to do when I'm doing a pound cake. Instead of spraying it with Pam or something like that, I kind of like to do this the old school way. So I got that pan prepped, and then I made my batter for the pound cake, which is a lot of flour, a lot of eggs, a lot of blueberries, and there's a lot going on here. I don't remember if I made a post about this on the Man Cave Meals page, and I included the recipe in that post. And I've made video on this before also, if you want to look that up. It's the same recipe. This is a recipe that I don't change. I'm not evolving this recipe. It's right where it needs to be. But I got my small KitchenAid mixer out and mixed this thing. And then we just spread it out in that pan. I put it in my oven and let it cook. This cooks at 325, and it takes about 90 minutes or so for this one to get done. And it's just beautiful. That's just as it's getting ready. Not quite done in that picture, but here it is done. I pulled it out and I let it cool in the pan for about 15 minutes. And this is what it looks like when it comes out of the pan. And you can see here that cast iron bump pan makes a beautiful, beautiful cake. It's perfectly cooked everywhere. It's not a thing missing in that. And there's what it looks like from above. But it's just a really beautiful cook. And yeah, Anurag, it's a great cake. It's a great pan. I've got other bump pans, those thin metal ones, but I use this one unless I can't for some reason, which I haven't found a reason I can't use this pan. But I do this cake two ways. Sometimes I cook this cake in the bump pan like I've done here, and sometimes I split that batter out into 2 of the Lodge cast iron loaf pans, the bread loaf pans, and do 2 loaf cakes from that same batch. But when you do that, they cook a little quicker. It doesn't take quite 90 minutes when you split that out into 2 pans. It goes in about an hour and 10 minutes or so, or hour and 5 to hour and 10. But this is a cross section cut of that cake. And these are blueberries that came off my blueberry bushes outside. I haven't gotten a great blueberry harvest this year. I'm not going to get a lot more, so I'm a little disappointed with that. I need to prune the bushes to get them to bush out more and yield a little bit better. And I think I've got one. No, I thought I had one more picture of that cake, but man, this is amazing. Carl, do you have a recipe for? I do. Like I said, look at the Man Cave Meals Facebook page from earlier this week. I posted this cook along with these pictures, and one of the images I posted there was a screenshot of the recipe that I used to make this. You're not gonna like, you're gonna hate the recipe probably because it's in metric weight. All of my bacon recipes are by weight now. I've converted every bacon recipe that I have to grams because I never have deviations in my consistency when I weigh the ingredients. Yeah, smoke ring. But that's a perfect crust. That crust is beautiful. That outer crust caramelizes a bit, and you're seeing some Maillard reaction there. That's exactly what that is because there's a lot of sugar in that cake. But this has got it's blueberry cream cheese. I use butter and cream cheese in this, and sugar and flour and eggs. It's got 6 eggs, 6 whole eggs in it, a little bit of vanilla. I also put in a little bit of lemon extract. You could put lemon zest in this. You could put the zest of one or maybe even 2 lemons with this, because I use lemon zest like that in my blueberry muffins that I make, and it's a really good addition. So yeah, that's what I made for the 4th of July. Tanya, what do you think about that?
Well, I don't know. I only had 2 pieces, so it was really it was really difficult to evaluate.
We took some of that to your parents. Did your parents have had it before, haven't they? Did
Yeah,
they
they
like
did.
it? Yeah.
Well, yeah. The funny thing is that Mom was pointing out, Dad was like, "Now, John said I didn't have to share this," and Mom says, "That's not
Mm,
true. John said you had to
yeah.
share." So they really like that cake. It is very good.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite desserts to make, and I overslept on Monday. I don't get home till 7 o'clock on Monday morning from work, and normally on a normal Monday I'm up by 12 or 12:30. I just can't sleep much longer than that. But for some reason or another, this past Monday I didn't wake up till 2 o'clock, and I needed to be at my mom's by 5, and I hadn't started on this cake yet, so I had to rush to get that cake made. And I had it made, and I was trying to get it cooled down enough to where I could take it out of the pan and get it down to her house. And I ended up putting it in a plastic grocery bag, uncut, and kind of let it finish cooling on the way to mom's. It's about a 25-minute ride to mom's from here, and we didn't slice it till we got down there, but it was really good. It,
Truly, it was
yeah.
delicious.
So where are we next in this week's cooking? Okay, I made a video this week. I made 2 videos this week, and this one that you're getting ready to see here is not going to publish this week. It's going to publish next week or maybe even the week after that. But I wanted to do a pork butt cook on the Aaron Franklin PK grill because I haven't done that yet. And I get asked that question a lot. Can you cook low and slow on this grill? And the answer is absolutely you can. But another thing is I didn't want this cook to be a long, drawn out cook. I wanted to get it done during the day. So I cooked up around 300 degrees, or maybe I was probably closer to 275 in between 275 and 300 for most of this cook, simply because I wanted to get it on and off the grill in 8 or 9 hours time. And that's what I did. So, I use my fireboard to I don't have the thermometer, the analog thermometer on this grill. I need to get that. I meant to get it when I bought it and forgot, and I just can't remember to pick it up when I'm at Atlanta Grill Company. But I want to get that analog thermometer, so I use the fireboard. This grill's got a port in the back that I'm going to show you in a minute where you can run these probe wires through. So what I did, I set up like this. I took the short part of the grill grate off and just put some briquette charcoal in here, and I put a drip pan under here. And guys, try to remember. You'd think I'd know this by now, but I don't. I'm thick. I need to, when I put a 9x13 drip pan in here, but I should have foiled that guy before I put it in there, because that was another pain in the butt to clean up because I didn't foil it. But I put a bunch of briquette charcoal in here, and oh, that's just a picture of my probe wires sitting there before I hooked them up. This grill's got a port on the back side where you can run your temperature probe wires in and not have to run them underneath the lid. My PK360 didn't have that, so I took a little half moon file, and I filed a little groove in the base where the lid comes down, just deep enough where I could run probe wires through it. There's a really nice little enhancement to that grill. But here you can run a couple probe wires through these holes, and that's what I did. And I had a 9.5-pound pork butt, so I scored the fat cap and I scored the top side on this one, and I seasoned it up, and I used a 50-50 blend of my Atlanta Grill Company Man Cave Meals AP Mojo and Pork Mojo. And I used the Drip Easy prep tub, and I seasoned it up really well and just tossed it back in the refrigerator while I got things ready. This one, I didn't go overnight like I normally do. I like to let these things season overnight, but this one I just didn't do that. Or did I? I don't remember if I did or not now. I don't think I did. I can't remember. I can't remember. I've done so much stuff this week, but maybe I did put that in there overnight.
We'll figure it out. Did. I really think you did, honey.
Yeah, I think I did. So I've got one of these small size Weber charcoal chimneys. I've got the large one, the normal one, but I also have this small one. So I filled it up with briquettes and lit it up and let it get ashed over. And when it got, no, I did let that, there's a picture of it. I did let that go overnight. I did season that the night before. So it had about 12 hours of ahead time seasoning. I dumped that small chimney of lit briquettes over here on the edge of these unlit briquettes, and I put some cherry wood chunks on there. And I put my temperature probe in the meat. I had my ambient probe over here on the back side of the meat. And then I just closed it up and I let it go. I let it cook, and I adjusted the top vents to regulate my airflow. The bottom vent over here on the right side, I had this bottom vent fully open, the bottom vent on the left fully closed, and on the top, I had the top vent on this end fully closed and the top vent over the butt fully open, where the air would come up through the charcoal, through the grill, across the meat, up and out the other side. You can kind of direct the airflow on this grill by how you open and close the vent. So this, I don't remember exactly how far in I was at this point in the cook, but yeah, I got a really nice bark. This is getting close to I think I was pretty close to 5 hours in. Yeah, at the 5 hour mark, this is about 5 hours in, and my internal temperature of the meat at this point was up to about 170 to 172, and I was happy with that bark. That bark was acceptable to me right there, so I wrapped it. I put it in foil, and this is after it had been in the foil for 2.5 more hours or so. I think I went 7.5 hours roughly on this cook, maybe 8. I don't remember. I'll tell you in the video because I remember talking about it. And yeah, but this was 8 hours in. This was after about 8 hours. and this was money, guys. This bark's one of the better looking barks I've had in quite a while, and one of the better tasting barks also. So I just pulled that guy out and I pulled it by hand. Like that's just how I do it. I put my Harbor Freight gloves on. I can't remember what the brand name of those are at the moment, but they're and I just get in there with my hands and pull that. And one of the things I want to talk about briefly here is the charcoal. This cook took me back to a time before I was cooking on Kamado grills. Tanya, before I got the Kamado grills, I was cooking on Kingsford charcoal.
You were.
I did not use lump. I don't think I bought my first bag of lump charcoal until I bought my first Kamado grill, which was the Char Griller Acorn. I cooked on Kingsford, and back then, Kingsford went on sale 3 times a year. It went on sale Memorial Day week, the 4th of July week, and Labor Day week, and it was always about half price. And you were able to get Kingsford, and you'd end up buying 2 20-pound bags of it, and it worked out to like 26 or 27 cents a pound. And that's when I would buy my Kingsford, and I'd stock up. I'd buy enough of it to where I'd have, yeah, Tanya knows, I'd have 15 or 20 bags of Kingsford laying around at any given time. And
yeah, my
I was cooking.
gosh, looked like a Kingsford warehouse.
Yeah, I was cooking on my Weber Smoky Mountain at that time, and I was cooking on the ugly drum smoker that I built, and I was cooking on a Weber kettle. So I was cooking on a lot of things that were designed to run with briquettes. And I'm going to do some. I'll tell you about the testing here in a minute. This is going to get me in trouble, but I'm going to say it anyway. I really, really like the flavor profile I get from cooking with Kingsford. This cook was a mix of 2 different charcoals. I only had a little bit of Kingsford left, so this one was with Kingsford and the B&B. I don't buy Kingsford anymore. I buy B&B briquettes from Academy Sports because I really like those larger briquettes that come in those bags, and they're very reasonably priced. I think the B&B is actually usually cheaper per pound than the Kingsford is. But I am a fan of the flavor profile you get from the briquettes. And I don't know if it's a nostalgic thing or what it is, but it's good. I like it. And one of the things I want to do is, one of the things that comes up occasionally in social media is people ask the question, can you cook with briquettes in your Kamado? And the answer is yes, you can. And I've done it. And it's the only problem is you do have a mess of ash to clean up when you're done. But one of the things I know for a fact, because I've done these tests in the past, is I ran my original Kamado Joe. I wanted to see how long I could run it on a full load of briquettes. So I loaded up the firebox to just short of the deflector plates with briquettes. And I put my original temperature control system on there, which was the Barbecue Guru DigiQ2 DX on there. And I ran that grill for 35 plus hours on Kingsford briquettes. And that was with the temperature controller. I don't know if I could have pulled that off without the temperature controller, because I think I would have choked up my airflow. But when you've got a fan blowing in there, the air is going to find your charcoal. And if you're using a temperature controller, you can make it work. And one of the things I want to do, I like to use, when I'm using lower amounts of charcoal in my Kamado grills, I've got several smaller sized kick ash baskets. Like I've got a couple of kick ash baskets that were made for the small size Big Green Egg, or maybe even the Kamado Joe Junior size charcoal baskets. And when I'm going to do a cook where I know I don't need a lot of charcoal, I like to use those baskets in the bottom of my Classic, because it allows me to keep a smaller amount of charcoal bunched up together where it'll all burn. If you tried to put 2 pounds of charcoal in the bottom of a Big Joe or even in the bottom of a Classic, it's going to spread out. It's going to be hard to keep it piled up together as it burns. That pile is going to fall, and there will be pieces in there that won't burn because they lost contact with the fire or they never got in touch with the fire. But what I want to do is put 3 or 4 pounds maybe of briquettes in one of those baskets and then put my fireboard on there and see if I can run that grill at 300 degrees for 8 or 9 hours. Randy, that's a tough question. I don't know. I don't know. I like both. I do like both, and I like using hardwood lump charcoal because I don't like cleaning up the ash mess at the end. I prefer hardwood lump for that reason. It's a mess of ash left behind. I can burn 20 pounds of lump charcoal and not produce as much ash as I'm going to produce burning 3 or 4 pounds of briquettes. There's a lot of non-combustible stuff in the briquettes that stays behind as ash. The hardwood lump almost fully combusts. It does not leave much behind. So, but in terms of flavor, I don't know what it is about the Kingsford. I don't know what's in it that gives it that flavor profile, but it's good. I'm not going to say that it's not. I don't have any. I don't know what's the word I'm looking for here, Tanya? I've got no complaints about the flavor I get cooking over briquettes.
Well,
I'm sure
there's a place for all of it. So many times we tend to think it's this or that. Why not and? I mean, there's nothing wrong.
Well, I have put briquettes and lump together before, and I don't know that. I think when I did that, I still got the dominance of the briquette charcoal flavor, but I still had more ash than I wanted to deal with. This cook, I should have taken a picture of the ash that was left behind from this cook because that air vent on that, I had to add, one of the things I didn't tell you there on that cook is I had to add some briquettes as I went. I added a handful of briquettes 4 or 5 times during that cook to keep that thing running at 300 for that amount of time. And the ash was built up over the charcoal grate in the bottom of that grill. The ash was all the way up to the charcoal grate, and I can't really explain how the airflow works in that grill, but the way that there's a cover over the air vent that can't really get clogged up very easily, and it didn't get clogged up, but it was completely covered in ash. And Anthony, the fire management technique's not really any different than a Kamado because it's all about the airflow. You control the airflow through this grill just like you control the airflow through a Kamado. You've got top vents and you've got bottom vents, but on this grill, you have 2 bottom vents and 2 top vents, so you can control the direction the air is moving through the grill, or you can open both fully on the top and the bottom and get it screaming hot. It's just all about the airflow. Yeah, Cindy, the briquette, I use briquettes exclusively on this grill, on this Aaron Franklin PK grill, because lump, this is where lump fails. If I want to sear, if I want to have a 2-zone or if I want to do searing, the problem with lump is the pieces are irregularly shaped and sized, and it's hard to get even heat over a decent size area because of the size variations. I don't have that problem with briquettes. I like to, if I want to set up a searing zone on this grill, these briquettes are all the same size. They're equal. They're all basically the same size and shape. And I want them at least 2 deep across there. And I've got a perfectly even heat bed once those briquettes are ashed over. And I cannot get that with lump in this grill. It's hard to do. If all my lump was the same size, which you guys know, you can't find that in a bag of lump charcoal. So, but I love that grill, that PK grill. PK Grills really got it right with this new model. And uh, I don't know if Janice is with us tonight. Janice has done.
Yeah.
She's done a lot of great cooks on hers. I watch what she posts in the PK Grill group. She got to meet the PK Grill folks at Atlanta Grill Company back in June, so that worked out well. So let me keep moving here. What's next? Oh, there's the last picture from that butt cook, and you all know what that means. That bone pulled out clean. That butt. I took that to about 205 internal. If I didn't say that, I let it go to 205 in the foil, and it was just it wanted to fall apart as soon as I touched it. And you'll see that in the video whenever I get that video published. I did spatchcock chicken this week that I want to publish this weekend. So that's what we're going to look at shortly. We're going to look at some 48-hour cold fermented pizza dough here, but I also made some homemade pizza sauce. And this sauce, I didn't take a bunch of pictures during this, but this is so easy to make and it's so delicious. I like to make this a day or two ahead of when I'm going to use it to give that flavor time to develop. But what this starts out as is one of the 800 gram or 28 ounce cans of San Marzano tomatoes. You can buy crushed tomatoes if you want. I typically buy the whole ones, and I just ran these through my food mill to turn it into crushed tomatoes. But I got my saucepan out and I put 2 or 3 tablespoons of olive oil in the bottom of it. I chopped up a clove of garlic and I put about a half a teaspoon of red pepper flake in there and let that oil go to work sucking the flavor out of the garlic and the red pepper flake. And when that was done, I dumped in my my crushed tomatoes and a couple of fresh basil leaves. And I didn't really cook this. I just let it heat, and I like to warm it up because that helps the salting process. And once I got that incorporated, I started salting it to taste. And I think I probably got somewhere between a teaspoon and a teaspoon and a half of salt in here. I just added it till I'm happy with it, and it's somewhere in that neighborhood. And then I put this in a mason jar, and I put it in the refrigerator, and I'm going to use this tomorrow, or I'm going to use some of it tomorrow because I'm going to fire up the Alpha tomorrow, and Tanya and I are going to have calzones for dinner. But here's the meat of that. I wanted to do the 48-hour cold ferment sourdough, and Freddie up in Boston had posted a recipe for this last week, and I was looking at it. He didn't give a lot of detail about the process. He just gave the ingredients he used, and I was looking at his recipe compared to mine and trying to figure out what the difference was. And he uses a lot more sourdough starter than my recipe does. He uses 150 grams, where I use about half that much. But part of what he didn't tell you is how long he bench rested or he bulk rises that. And I'm guessing 3 to 4 hours, because when I use the 80 grams or half of that amount, my bulk rise is 8 or 10 hours before I put it in the refrigerator. So basically, my recipe is the same as his. It's just a little different approach. But what you've got here is the main ingredients in this dough. I've got flour, water, salt, and this is my yeast. This is sourdough starter. This is 150 grams of 100% hydration sourdough starter, which means it's half water and half flour by weight. And I had fed this 12 or 14 hours before I want to use it. That's where I like for my sourdough starter to be in terms of activity before I use it. It needs to have been fed 12 to 14 hours. I don't like it to be 24 hours out. I like it to be in the 12 to 14 hour range. So I fed this at about 9 o'clock the night before, and I started mixing this dough about 9 o'clock the next morning. So what I did was I mixed my starter and my water together in the bowl of my stand mixer and got that completely mixed up. And then I added my flour. I did not add the salt yet, and worked that up into a shaggy dough ball. And then I just covered that up in plastic and I let that sit for an hour. Some people will let that sit even longer. Uh, I may experiment with letting it sit longer, but what this is called an autolyse. And what that means in layman's terms, I guess, is you're letting the flour absorb the water. But also what's happening during that process is gluten is forming. It's not stretching or creating the strands yet, but the gluten is forming during this process. So when I do start kneading this dough, I'm going to have a good gluten network to start with. So I let that sit for an hour, just like that. And then I took the plastic off, I put it in the mixer, and then I added my salt. I added my salt at this stage, and I let my KitchenAid run this with the dough hook for about 10 minutes. And I've got a nice smooth dough ball that's got a good gluten network in it. I did some pulls on it to have a look at it. I did not make video of this, but at some point maybe I will. But that dough, I put it in a mixing bowl. Actually, it's in this picture. It's in the KitchenAid mixing bowl, but I actually pulled it out, put it in a smaller bowl because that KitchenAid wouldn't fit where I wanted to put it. My man cave, guys, this time of year, it's about 68 degrees down here in the man cave. And that's not the best temperature for proofing dough. It'll work. It just takes a little longer. So I wanted to put this in my Anova Smart Oven and run it at 80 to 85 degrees to proof this, because this dough needs to go through what's called a bulk rise before you go to the refrigerator. That sourdough, that naturally cultured yeast is not as Tanya, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not as vibrant. It's not as powerful as commercial dry yeast. So this bench rest, or it's not the bulk rise, is giving that yeast time to get active on this new food source that it's been introduced to. So I let this go for 4 hours in the Anova Smart Oven, covered in plastic, it between 80 and 85 degrees. This oven will allow you to set it down as low as 77, but I set it at 80, and the actual temperature in the oven was fluctuating between 80 and 87 degrees during that 4 hours that I let it do its bulk rise. And at the end of 4 hours here, I'm nearly doubled up. It's almost doubled up in size. So at this stage, I pulled it out and I did some stretching and folding by hand to continue to create that gluten network. And then I took my bench knife and I broke that into 3 pieces that were almost on target. I was looking for 265 grams a piece roughly, because that dough ball weighed 800 grams, and I wanted to make three pieces out of it that were around 265. So I reshaped each of those into new dough balls, and I stretched and folded each one of those a couple of times. And I put those in a couple of individual containers that I had greased, put the lids on them, and they are currently in the refrigerator. I'll pull these out. I'm planning to cook these tomorrow at probably somewhere between 5 and 6 p.m. So I'm probably going to pull them out of the refrigerator around 1 or 2, because these guys need to come out of the fridge and sit at room temperature for 3 or 4 hours before they're going to be shapeable the way I'd like for them to be. I don't have anything further to show you on that. Anurag, this is bread flour. I used King Arthur organic bread flour for these. I don't have any double alt flour at the moment. I probably need to get some. I just haven't bought any in a while, and I'm out of it. No, it's not double malt. Uh, I have become spoiled on the Caputo 00 pizzeria flour, and it's a little harder for me to come by. There's a wood fired oven pizza place here in town that will sell me the 25 kilogram bags of that, and I've bought two of those from them in the past, and I've been through it all, and I've shared some of it, but I don't want to buy 55 pounds of flour again. I'm gonna have to pay more money per pound and buy smaller quantities, unless some of you guys want to go in. Maybe if three of you guys want to go in and split a 55-pound bag of Caputo 00 four ways, I'd be willing to get it, because I can get that bag for 50 or $55. And I don't know, the price may have gone way up since the inflation's hit. I don't know what it would actually cost me to get it now, but that pizzeria flour is a higher protein flour than the typical, the baker's. Caputo makes a baker's 00 flour also, and the pizzeria version is a higher protein version. So I've had really good luck using King Arthur bread flour, because King Arthur bread flour is up around, it's just shy of 13% protein. It's really, really good flour. It's just not ground quite as finely, and I've had great luck with it. So yeah, that's where I am on the flour. So next week, guys, you'll get to see the results of this. I'll make pictures, and I'll probably post some of the calzone pictures tomorrow or Saturday. So watch the Man Cave Meals page. I'll probably hopefully have a couple of nice looking photos of calzone tomorrow evening. One of the next projects I did this week was mint. I posted about this on the Man Cave Meals page today. I've got a really beautiful mint plant, and I needed to trim it back some to promote further growth and expansion on this plant. And I didn't know what I was going to do with it. And I got to thinking about the fact that my grandmother, when I was little, used to make mint jelly. And she had a garage that was detached from her house. And beside her garage, there was this bed of spearmint. And it was about 6 feet wide by about 15 feet long. And this stuff's invasive. If any of you guys actually have this stuff growing that's not in a pot, it'll take over an area. And when I would mow my grandmother's yard, she would occasionally tell me, she'd say, mow the mint. And when I would run the lawnmower over the mint, the entire neighborhood would smell like this mint for an hour. You could smell it. But sometimes she would go out there and cut mint and bring it in and make mint jelly. And at the time, when I was young, I didn't think the idea of mint jelly sounded very good, and I never tried it. And I also never asked her what she did with it. And to this day, I really don't know what she did with it. My sister tells me that she put it on pork loin, which is possible. But I wanted to try making mint jelly, and I was telling Tanya about this, and I did some looking around on YouTube and saw a bunch of videos on how people were making mint jelly. So we went to the grocery store the other night, and I was looking for Sure-Gel, because that's what everybody was using. And Tanya says there will be a recipe in the Sure-Gel package that'll tell you how to do it. Well, we didn't find Sure-Gel, but we found this Certo, which is by Sure-Gel, and it's a liquid fruit pectin packet. And sure enough, in the package, there's a recipe and technique for making mint jelly. So I said, I'm just going to do that. So I harvested, the recipe called for a packed cup and a half of mint leaves. And guys, that's a lot of mint leaves. And that's what you see right here in my mixing bowl. So, and then it said you needed to chop them up fairly finely. So I don't know if what I chopped here is classified as fairly finely or not, but that's what I did to them. And then you need to put them in a pot of cold water and bring this up to a boil. And once it comes to a boil, You take it off the heat, put the lid on it, and let it steep for 10 minutes. And then the instructions say to add 2 drops of green food coloring. Well, I added 2 drops of green food coloring, and I couldn't tell that anything had happened. And I ended up adding about 8 drops, and I still can't really tell that anything happened. But then you strain it through a fine mesh strainer or use cheesecloth or whatever. I just happen to have this really lovely chinois that's as good as cheesecloth or better in some cases, and I don't have to throw it away. And I strain it through there, and it tells you to squeeze out the liquid that you can get out of the remnants there. And I collected this in a glass batter bowl that I have. So the next thing it tells you to do is bring that back to a boil. And as soon as it starts boiling, you take it off the heat, you add the fruit pectin to it. You add also I added lemon juice. This requires lemon juice as well. To this mint extract that we made, I added lemon juice. Tanya, did I add something beside lemon juice? No, just lemon juice. It was 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. No, sugar. There's a ton of sugar here.
Yeah, you forgot like the 5 pounds of sugar that
Yeah,
went into this recipe.
It tells you how much. I had to pull one, and it asked me to pull 1 3/4 cup of the extract that we made, because I had a little bit more than that, but it said pull 1 3/4 cup, and I think it was either 3 1/4 or 3.5 cups of sugar was added to that. And then the lemon juice, and you bring that to a boil. And once it comes to a rolling boil, you take it off the heat, then you add the fruit pectin, stir that in, you put it back on the heat, bring it back to a rolling boil for just 1 minute. And where's it? After it comes back to a boil for 1 minute, you take it off and you immediately put it in your prepped jars. And one of the things I didn't do here that it recommends doing is going through the canning process. I did clean and sterilize these jars, but I don't have a canner, and I didn't go through the canning, so I don't know how long this stuff's going to keep. But it was hot enough that my jar tops did seal. They clicked. You know how these mason jar tops click. It's probably not the same strength of seal I'd have gotten through canning, and we're going to get a canner. I did order a canner the other day, and after I talked to Tanya about it, I canceled my order because I realized that I need a pressure canner for something else I want to do. So I canceled that order, and I'm going to get us a pressure canner. And but anyway, I'll let this stuff cool. And as you can see here, with the 8 drops of green food coloring I put in this, when it only called for 2, this still looks like a weak urine at best. But let me tell you, it set up just fine. It's a beautiful jelly, and that's the color of it after it's set up, you know. And I took it out. I put one of them in the refrigerator to chill it, and last night I had a taste of it, and I took some up to Tanya. I'm not so sure that Tanya liked it as much as I do, but I think this has a really beautiful flavor. I like it. I think it could stand to have a little bit more mint to it. And I think next time I make it, I may try to pack my 1.5 cups of mint leaves a little tighter and get even more mint in it. And I may chop it even finer so I can maybe get a better extraction on that mint. Tanya, what did you think about it? I know all I could get out of Tanya was it's different. So tell me more.
Well, it is different. I'd never had mint jelly before. I'm not particularly super huge mint person. So, I mean, it wasn't bad. It was just different. That being said, I really don't think I want to slather it on toast.
Well, yeah, it's not something that people use on toast. I'm going to try it just because I can. But everybody I've asked people in multiple forums, what do you do with mint? Or what can you do with mint jelly? And I've gotten two answers. You put it on lamb, or you put it on crackers with cream cheese. And I don't. That's like the only two things people can come up with. There's got to be something more you can do with this. And the reason I'm growing mint is because I want to make a mint sauce to use on lamb. I'm not going to put mint jelly on lamb. I'm going to make something way better than mint jelly with some of this mint to go on lamb. It's going to be closer to a mint pesto, something along those lines to go on lamb. And I may hook up with my buddy Glenn down there in Australia. I don't know if Glenn's with us tonight or not, but I may get some feedback from him on what I want to do for that, because they eat a lot more lamb than I do. And like, once again, I'm the only person in our family that eats lamb. So if I cook a rack of lamb, I'm going to eat a rack of lamb. So yeah. Anyway, that's the Certo. That's what I bought to make this. And in that package, there's 2 packets of the liquid fruit pectin. So I've got another packet that I can do something else with. And that stuff's not particularly cheap. I think it was $5 for that 2 packs. But I went to the website, and there are a lot more recipes for stuff that jellies you can make on the website. And I saw another one on there that I'm going to want to try. That's a jalapeno pepper jelly. And that one sounded to me like something I would want to spread on a cracker with cream cheese. That jalapeno pepper jelly was made with, you chopped red and green bell peppers and jalapeno peppers, and you steep them in the hot water. And you dice those finely, because you're going to leave them in. You're not going to strain those out. And then you're going to add apple cider vinegar and sugar, and then your fruit pectin, and make a jelly out of that. So it's going to be a hot, sweet jelly. I want to try to make that one. So yeah, Andrew's talking about hot pepper jelly. Andrew, if you've got a recipe for that, pass it my way. I'd love to have a look at it, because jelly making's new to me. It's not something I've ever done. Tanya makes freezer jams that are really good, and she's made some incredible freezer jams. But Tanya, do you use the Certo in freezer jams?
Oh yeah,
the same stuff.
Well, for the most part, it really depends. Like if you're making a crab apple jelly or apple jelly, you don't need the Certo, because there's already all the natural pectin. But I use it for everything else.
Yeah.
So strawberries, peaches, blackberries, plum.
But there was a lot of jelly recipes on there, and I'm going to get us a canner. We've been looking at canners, and once again, guys, that's a rabbit hole. Tanya and I were before we went to sleep last night, we were laying in the bed looking at videos on YouTube about these canners. And Tanya's looking at this one called an All-American, which is beautiful. It is a work of art. It's a machined aluminum pressure canner that does not use a rubber gasket. The top and the bottom made without a gasket, and it's really high end, and it's $450 for a 21 quart model. And it's beautiful. It's something that if I bought it, it would get that hashtag I like to use called MCM really right stuff. And I guarantee you it probably is. And we were looking at videos on it, and the thing that's got me afraid of getting it is there's a learning curve to putting the lid on it. You have to have it back. It's got six screws on top that you have to tighten down to get the lid sealed up on it. And if you don't have that lid just right, or if you got too much pressure on one side, not enough on the other, it'll leak. And I'm sure it's probably not that complicated to put together, but the Presto pressure canner that's $169 has got a rubber gasket, and it's a real simple process to use. So probably what's going to happen here is I'm going to do what I do. I'm going to buy a Presto, and then 6 weeks later, I'm going to say I should have bought the All American, and I'll turn around and buy the All American. I need to talk to Janice. Janice has got the All American. She told me about it, and I need to look at it.
And talk to Nana Juju because she's used
Yeah,
the Presto
yeah.
like forever. Nana Juju's my
Well,
mom, y'all.
the uh, the Presto's just got that gasket just has to be replaced periodically. I don't have any idea what it costs, but these Presto pressure canners have apparently become victims of inflation because they used to only be like $80, but now they're twice that. They're 160 or $169 now. But I need a canner. We're going to can tomatoes from our own garden this year, and we got to get a canner of some sort so we can do that. You don't have to have a pressure canner for tomatoes, but some of the other stuff we want to can needs to be pressure canned. And I've discovered that I can can stocks that I make with a pressure canner, and that excites me because I'm going to be making some stocks very shortly as part of an online class. I've told you guys before, I take the web cookingclasses.com from Chef Todd Moore. And I bought an additional class from him a while back called the Sauce Boss. And it's a class it's nothing but sauce making and sauce making technique. And the first lessons in that class are about making stocks that you're going to use to make sauces with, to make your mother sauces. It it talks about making vegetable stocks. It talks about making chicken stocks, and it talks about making beef stocks, uh, brown stocks from beef. You can make white stocks from chicken, and basically it talks about seafood stocks and all these others. I'm also definitely not a person who feels compelled to make my own stocks. I would just as soon buy them most of the time because the work involved in making stocks is significant, especially if you want to make a lot of it. But for the sake of this class, I'm going to make those. Uh, yeah, thanks, Ryan. I'll have a look at that. But I'm going to make, since I'm going through the class, I'm going to make a vegetable stock. I'm going to make a chicken stock, and I'm going to make a brown beef stock just because I feel that I need to do that if I'm going to learn from this class. And once I have those stocks made, I'll use these stocks to make sauces. But I'm not going to can these, I'm going to freeze them. I learned a long time ago that you can put stocks in Ziploc bags. You don't even have to put them in vacuum seal bags. And you can get all the air out of the Ziploc bags in a sink of water, seal that up, and then you lay it flat on a sheet tray, put that in the freezer and let it freeze. And you can stack them up in the freezer. And I like to freeze my stocks in 2 cup serving sizes. That's a pretty common size. And the other thing I've learned from Chef Todd Moore's classes is you cook with flavorful liquids. Nothing has less flavor than water. So if you're cooking rice, why cook it in water when you can cook it in chicken stock or vegetable stock or beef stock even, unless a good chicken stock's not going to really change the color of your rice too much because a good chicken stock's fairly clear and doesn't have a lot of color to it. Contrary to popular belief, a real chicken stock's not cooked with roasted chicken. It's cooked with raw bones. So there's that. But
John, you had 2 questions that I started that I wanted if you'd have a
okay,
minute
let's
to
have a
answer.
look.
Okay, now the first one is from Rick, and he was asking if you've tried the charcoal with the infused hardwood chips yet.
I have not, Rick. I'll have a look at those. And Kingsford's had something like that for a while. Back when I was cooking with Kingsford a long time ago, they introduced these very small bags where there were charcoal infused with a good bit of flavor woods, where the idea was to only use some of that along with the regular Kingsford. But I'll have a look. Next time I see some Kingsford that's infused with those, I'll grab a bag. I have not tried whatever their current offering might be on that, but I can imagine it would be pretty good. I'll look at that.
And I can probably answer this one from Rob. The
Okay, go
foil
ahead.
versus butcher paper.
I'll let my
Uh,
wife tell you the answer to that one.
Always go with the foil. Um, always go with the foil
Why do I go with foil?
because you feel that it helps better bark formation
Nope.
and other stuff.
I've
I'll
got
be
a, I've got a roll of butcher paper. I can see it. It's over there on my
I
shelf.
know you use it to wrap gifts with.
I wrapped some Christmas presents in that a couple of years ago because I was tired of looking at it. I don't use it for much. Okay, let me answer the question. And I answered this question. I did a Kamado Joe pork butt here. Was it the last week's video? Yeah, it was the video where I made the pork butt and I made the pulled pork sandwiches with the
Pickled onions.
pickled onions. I mentioned in that video why I use foil, and let me tell you, Aaron Franklin is responsible for this butcher paper phenomenon. Nobody did that until Aaron Franklin mentioned doing it in one of his shows or somewhere down the line. Aaron Franklin started this trend. He surmises that you get better bark with it. So my question, I've got a couple of things that immediately come to mind before this, and this is not that old. This is only maybe 5 years old. Prior to that, how did anybody get a good bark? If you listen to people today, you can't get a good bark with foil. You'll get mushy, fall apart bark, and that doesn't happen to me because I let my bark set before I put it in the foil. If you're watching your cook with your eyes instead of watching it with a thermometer, you can tell when the bark is set. And when I cook pork butts and when I cook briskets, my bark typically, when I'm cooking at lower temperatures, my bark is typically very nicely set when the internal temperature on my meat is somewhere between 170 and 175. It's never ready at 160 or 165. And if you ask somebody, when do I need to foil or when do I need to wrap it in butcher paper? Most of the time they tell you when the internal temperature is 160 or 165. And I just don't see that. In my experience, that's not ready at that point. And how to tell if your bark is set. You scratch your bark with your fingernail. If you can easily scratch that bark off with your fingernail, it's not set yet. It needs to keep on cooking. When it gets hard enough to where you can't scratch it off with your fingernail, it's okay to wrap that, and you can wrap it in foil, and that bark is not going to turn to mush. If your bark is set before you wrap it, it's not going to turn to mush. The second reason I prefer foil is it's a lot less messy. That butcher paper soaks up the grease, and it's a nightmare mess. It makes a mess. It's a mess to deal with. Every surface that you're working on with that stuff's going to get covered in grease because that paper soaks it up. Foil doesn't do that. Foil keeps it in, and yeah, that bark and that paper it may breathe better, and it may continue to get even firmer inside of that. And there's a lot of people that don't foil or wrap at all, and I don't like that camp because those barks, in my opinion, are too firm. I don't like that. That's one of the reasons I wrap. The third reason I use foil is the main reason I showed in that last video I published, because in the latter part of that cook, the fats and collagens that are rendering out of that after you're at the 170-degree mark, it collects inside that foil, and I want that. I don't want to lose that. When I'm finished cooking, I'll lift that pork butt off of my grill in that foil and set that foil in my cooler, and I set the butt that's wrapped in foil in my cooler. I cover it with a towel and I let it rest for a minimum of 2 hours. And there's going to be some additional rendering that happens during that time. Some more of that goodness is going to render out of that butt during that time. And I rest for 2 to 4 hours usually. It can be anywhere in that window. I like to go at least 2, but I think 3 is a sweet spot. Anywhere inside of 2 to 4 hours. And there's a good bit of that liquid that's collected. I also double foil mine. because I don't want to take a chance on poking a hole and letting that run out. I want to keep that, because when I get ready to rip my pork apart, I set that in one of my prep tubs, and I open that foil up and I flip that bud out and I let all that rendering go right into my container. And as I'm pulling that pork by hand, I'm mixing that back in, and that's liquid gold that you're mixing in with that pork. It's flavor that I don't want to throw away. You cannot do that if you're using butcher paper. And if one of the things that I like to throw out there occasionally about butcher paper is I believe that some people are more concerned with their bark than they are with the meat. I get that impression listening to people talk about it. The bark is secondary to the meat, and I'd rather have that flavor added back to my meat rather than letting that run into a garbage can or down a drain somewhere. Uh, Thoughts on that, Rob? What do you think? Does that make sense? Have I answered the question adequately? Where's that message? I can't see that on there, Tanya, to pull that one
That's
off the
still on
screen.
there.
Yeah,
You need to,
how do
you
I
need to pull
clear
it
that
up.
one off? Yeah,
Yeah,
there
just
it
click
goes.
on another one.
Just click on another one. Okay. I hope I answered that question, and let me know if I missed something. Uh, but that's how I do it. That's how I like to do it. And I don't know. It's preference. I don't hold it against anyone to use butcher paper, because one of the things I truly believe is one of the reasons people do things the way they do is they believe truly right here that what they're doing is value added. And if you believe that what you're doing is making your end result better, then that's what you need to do. Do that, because whether it actually is or not doesn't matter as long as you believe that it does, because it's going to enhance your entire process. It's going to make you feel better about what you're doing. If you like butcher paper, use butcher paper. Uh, it's just not my jam. So, but don't let that. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying it's bad, but I have made a case here for why I do it the way I do. If you like that, then try it. If not, keep on going the way you go. There's not there's not a wrong way as long as you're happy with what you're getting in the end. Scott bought a big thing of butcher paper to try, and it was just messier. I don't use it for anything but to keep the foil from sticking. Yeah, I don't know. I've got a roll. I bought a big roll of butcher paper on Amazon, and I don't know if I'm ever going to get all the way through that roll. I know I've been through 2 industrial grade rolls of foil since I bought that roll of butcher paper. I use a lot of aluminum foil, and I actually feel guilty about how much aluminum foil I use and throw away. Can I throw aluminum foil in a recycle bin, Tanya? Stuff that
I
I've
don't
cooked
know.
in? I don't know the answer to
I
that.
just so very rarely use aluminum.
Oh man,
I
I
don't
go through it.
know.
I buy those 18-inch wide rolls of the heavy duty stuff at Sam's Club, and I go through 2 rolls a year of that. About, yeah, it's a
Scott is
lost foil.
saying yes here, but yeah, no, I don't really use that much aluminum foil, so you know.
But all I use it for is wrapping meat when I'm cooking it. I don't put anything in aluminum foil and throw it in the refrigerator. That's where my vacuum sealer gets coming in. I cook in aluminum foil. I use aluminum foil in my Alpha oven, like on that macaroni and cheese. Sometimes you need to temper the heat in the Alpha oven, and the problem, I'm not going to call it a problem, I'm going to call it a feature of wood-fired ovens, is very intense radiant heat. And sometimes you need to tame that radiant heat, and it's very easy to tame that radiant heat by throwing a piece of aluminum foil over the top of whatever you're cooking so it doesn't burn on top before it cooks all the way through. That radiant heat will char the outside of something quickly. And yeah, I didn't think you could either, Fran. That's why I asked. I don't think I can throw used aluminum foil in the recycle bin. So I don't. I've been throwing it in the garbage can, but it's
So I kind of giggle about that because I sold where if the aluminum foil wasn't, too bad, you folded it up and you put it in a drawer, you used it again.
well, I guess you
So I
could do
guess you
that if you
could
want to.
recycle it.
Yeah, I'm not going to use aluminum. There are some things that cause aluminum foil to degrade. That's something Jeff and I've been talking about. Uh, there's some acidic situations which can eat through aluminum foil, and that's why I don't know if you remember when we were talking about the Myron mixing technique for beef ribs. Myron lays a piece of butcher paper across the beef ribs before he puts the foil on top, so his beef ribs don't come in contact with the foil and create that reaction that eats through the foil. I have not once in my life had that happen to me, but Jeff showed me a picture of where something he had done last week ate through some aluminum foil. I don't remember what it was, but I've wrapped pork butts, briskets, ribs, and all kinds of stuff in aluminum foil, and I have never once had the aluminum foil uh, get eaten up by whatever I had put in it. Ziploc.
Yeah.
I'm guilty of reusing Ziploc bags, and let me tell you what happens. I like to snack on cheese because it's a zero carb snack. I like to buy blocks of cheese and cut it into 1 ounce blocks and throw it in a Ziploc bag. And sometimes when I empty that bag, I'll cut up another block of cheese and throw it back in that same bag. So that's how I recycle a Ziploc.
Oh goodness. Well, speaking of parents, Sean, I need to call my mama.
All right. Well, we got to go. We're an hour and 20 minutes in. So, guys, I appreciate you hanging out with us. Next week, I'll be able to show you the results of our calzone from this 48-hour cold fermented dough. And if I didn't mention it when I was talking about that, the whole reason you do this particular dough is going to have two advantages over a typical dough. The first advantage is that it's sourdough. It's going to bring that flavor from the naturally cultured yeast, and the slow cold ferment is a flavor improvement in the dough also. I really like 48-hour and 72-hour cold ferment. I could let this dough go for 72 hours without having to change anything on it, but it's going to be delicious. So hopefully Tanya will be able to come back next week and say that was an awesome calzone. But I've got to go to the grocery store in the morning and pick up the stuff. I'm going to put some ricotta in it. I'm going to put mozzarella. I'm going to put parm, or either parm or pecorino romano, one or the other. I'm going to saute some onions and green peppers, and I'm going to put some kind of meat in there as well. I just don't know what that's going to be yet. Tanya's going to have to help me figure that out. So, guys, y'all have a good week. Yeah. We'll see you next Thursday night, and thanks for hanging with us. Y'all have a good weekend.